Hi everyone and welcome to another video. In this video, I'm basically going to be going over every single book that I read in 2024. So I'm going to go through them month by month, so starting January obviously all the way to December. So they're in order pretty much that I read them in. I'm just going to give you basically a really snappy review, so basically like one sentence about each book and the rating that I gave them. So it's just going to be like really quick fire, going through all the books that I read in 2024. January was definitely my best reading month. I read so much in January, and I think that's mainly down to the fact that I went on my honeymoon that month and I read like one book a day when I was away on honeymoon. So I did get a lot of reading done when I was away because it was like a very relaxing beach kind of holiday. And then in July I found out I was pregnant and everything just went downhill from there. I was in a massive reading slump. I only read a couple of books a month, which is better than nothing, but it wasn't fabulous. And then towards the end of the year it did sort of pick up again and I managed to get a lot more reading done again. So I'm just going to get into the video straight away and just go through all of the books. I don't have all of the books to hold up and show you because some of them I've sold, some of them are audiobooks, and some of them I'm letting like my mum borrow at the moment, or I just don't have them to hand. So I'll show you the books physically that I do still physically have and have on my shelves, but any that were audiobooks or on my Kindle or anything like that, I'll just put a little picture up here so you can see what the book looked like. Without further ado, let's get started. Starting with January, I read Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. This is a YA book that contained a lot of like diverse characters. I can't remember too much about it, to be perfectly honest, but I think I listened to it by audio and I did really enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars. These Hollow Vows by Lexi Ryan. I really enjoyed this as I don't think I'd read a fantasy for a while when I read this, so it was just like a breath of fresh air to read something. I don't think it was anything like mind-blowing like plot-wise, but I did fully enjoy it. 4.5 stars. Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. This is a fast-paced thriller where people start dying one by one, and I think the book follows like the time span of like one night, and it flashes back to the past and stuff. I did really enjoy it. It was 3.75 stars, slightly slow in places, but a good read. I listened to the audiobook of The Titan's Curse, which is the 3rd book in the Percy Jackson series. It was okay, but I think I decided that I'm just not going to continue with this series. I gave it 3 stars. Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. Absolutely loved this book. So good. Amazing. Love her. New favourite author. 5 stars. Fuel the Fire by Krista and Becca Ritchie. Absolutely adore this series. This is the 3rd book in the Calloway Sisters series. It was Rose and Connor's final book. Loved it. 4.75 stars. Beyond the Wand by Tom Felton. This is Tom Felton's like autobiography kind of thing, and I listened to this via audiobook, which I highly recommend because it's narrated by him himself, and it was just very interesting. As a Harry Potter fan, it was very insightful, and yeah, highly recommend this. I gave it 5 stars. Satan's Affair by H.D. Carlton. No, just no. I gave this 2 stars. It was like a dark romance, completely messed up, not my vibe. Really didn't like it. 2 stars. These Twisted Bonds by Lexi Ryan. 2nd book after These Hollow Vows. It was just a little duology. I did enjoy it, but not as much as the 1st book. 4 stars. Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. Absolutely loved this book. It's sort of a dark romance, but it was basically these 2 people get kidnapped and they end up falling in love while they're kidnapped. So it's very dark, lots of dark topics, but I did really enjoy this book. 4.75 stars. Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. Really enjoyed this. Read this one on my honeymoon. Very good romance, like second chance kind of romance, where you don't know where they fell out, why they fell out back in the day, and then they reconnect once they are older. 4.75 stars. The Locked Door by Frida McFadden. Another fast-paced thriller from Frida McFadden. I really enjoy her thrillers. They're just very quick reads. Yeah, not much else to say about it other than I did enjoy it. 4 stars. Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. This is probably my favourite book out of the entire year. I absolutely adore this so much. The characters, just like, oh, every single thing about this book, I love it. I wish I could read it again for the first time. 5 stars. The Exception to the Rule by Christina Lauren. This was like a little short novella. I read this on the plane and I really enjoyed it. For a novella, I was very pleasantly surprised. 4.25 stars. The Inmate by Frida McFadden. Another quick thriller from Frida McFadden. What else can I say? 4 stars. Now moving on to February, I read a couple of other short novellas, part of the Improbable Meet Cute series. One of them was The Worst Wingman Ever by Abby Jimenez. This one I quite enjoyed. It was quite good. 3.25 stars. And then I read Rosie and the Dreamboat by Sally Thorne. I gave this one 4 stars. The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Really enjoyed it. Very fast paced. The chapters were super short. Just like a fun kind of YA mystery. 4.25 stars. Loveless by Alice Oseman. Another very diverse book, which is what she writes a lot of, with YA characters. This book explores people that are an aromantic or an asexual, that sort of thing, which is very eye-opening to me because it's not something that I've ever experienced. 4.25 stars. Reckless by Elsie Silver. Did really enjoy this one. This is the 4th book in the Chestnut Springs series. I really like the characters in the found family, and I really like seeing like the other characters from the other books pop up in these. So yeah, 4.25 stars. Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I've not read anything that I didn't like from this author, and this book I listened to via audio, and it's basically a book about 2 separate timelines. If your life went one direction, what would happen, and if your life went another direction, what would happen. And there's sort of 2 different timelines going on, seeing the different ways that your life could pan out in different scenarios. 4.5 stars. Then I read Drop Cover and Hold On by Jasmine Guillory, which is another one of those short novellas that I've been reading. This one I didn't enjoy as much, probably the worst one so far out of them, at 2.75 stars. Moving on to March, I read Royal Valentine by Soraya Wilson, and this one I didn't really enjoy either, 2.75 stars again. Never Never by Colleen Hoover and Taryn Fisher. I feel like with this book we never got like a full answer of what happened in the book. It's sort of like a magical realism type vibe, and we never really found out why things had happened in the book, and it just really disappointed me. 2 stars. Before the Coffee Gets Cold by, I think it's Toshikazu Kawaguchi, I think that's how you pronounce it. I gave this book 3 stars. It was enjoyable, but I don't think I'm going to be continuing this with the series. It was just like a collection of cute little stories, but I just feel like it's not really my type of thing. I listened to the audiobook of Vox by Christina Doucher, and this I did really enjoy. This is sort of like a dystopian kind of thing. It's like where women are only allowed to say a certain amount of words in a day. They have like a wristwatch on that will like give you pain if you speak over a certain amount of words, and it's like women are being controlled in that way. So it's obviously a horrible scenario, but I did really enjoy this book. 3.75 stars. The Passengers by John Mars, another sort of like thriller sci-fi type thing by John Mars that follows loads of different perspectives. It's basically about self-driving cars and a massive thing that happens to do with those. It was really good. 4.25 stars. Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I did enjoy this, but I feel like I would have enjoyed it more if there was more fantasy elements in it. It was more just focused on the romance and that sort of thing, whereas I prefer a fantasy sort of romance, paranormal romance type thing to have more fantasy elements. So I would have given it a higher rating if it had more of those sort of elements. I gave it 3.5 stars. Moving on to April, I listened to the audiobook of The Duke and I, which is the first in the Bridgerton series. Really enjoyed it. 4.25 stars. I read Secretly Yours by Tessa Bailey. This book was not a fan of. I just think I've figured that I'm not really a fan of Tessa Bailey's books, to be honest, and I don't think I'm going to be reading much more from her. I've just not enjoyed pretty much all the books I've read by her, so I gave this 2.75 stars. Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare. So glad I finally got to this because it is a chunky book, and I was putting it off for a long time, but it's the last book in the Dark Artifices trilogy and I loved it. 4.5 stars. Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This was sort of like, it made me feel like I was in a bit of a fever dream type vibe, like you kind of don't know what's going on half the time. I did enjoy this one and I gave it 4.25 stars. A Man Called Ove by Frederick Backman. I can understand why a lot of people really like this book, but for me, I enjoyed it, but I think it was just a bit depressing for me. I just found the topics and the themes just a little bit depressing, and it just made me feel a bit weird inside. 3 stars. I also listened to the audiobook of the second Bridgerton book, which is The Viscount Who Loved Me. I did really enjoy this. I gave it 3.75 stars, but I must admit this isn't one of my favourite Bridgerton stories. No, hang on, I gave it 3.5 stars, not 3.75. Moving on to May, I read Redeemed by Lauren Asher, which is the 4th and final book in the Dirty Air series by her. This was definitely my favourite book in the series. I did enjoy this one a lot more than all of the others. 4.25 stars. Legendary by Stephanie Garber. Did enjoy this one. 4.25 stars. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue with the series or not though, because I've tried reading the final book multiple times and just cannot get into it, but we will see. Yellowface by Rebecca F. Kwong. This book was sort of a mixture between a literary fiction and a thriller. I really enjoyed it, but the ending I did kind of think was a little bit rushed. I'm not too sure on the ending, but I did really enjoy this read, even though it's completely different to anything I normally would read. 4.5 stars. Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Oh my gosh, another amazing, perfect romance book from Abby Jimenez. So I've given all 3 of the books I've read by her 5 stars. I read them all in 2024. She's definitely a new favourite author, and I've already pre-ordered her new book, which comes out in April 2025. 5 stars. The Lies You Told by Harriet Tice. Can't really remember this book at all, to be honest. I remember kind of enjoying it while I was reading it, but not memorable at all considering I can't remember anything about it. 3.25 stars. Next is June. I listened to the audiobook of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. I gave this 4.5 stars. Loved it. It was a reread for me. Just was rereading all of the Harry Potter books, and this one was the next one in in order to read. And I also listened to Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Oh, and I gave this one 5 stars. I also listened to the third Bridgerton book, which is An Offer from a Gentleman. I gave it 4 stars. Finding 13 by Chloe Walsh. Absolutely adore the characters in this. Love the story. It's very heartbreaking and emotional, but I absolutely loved it. 4.75 stars, and I must get to the next one soon. Happy Place by Emily Henry. I was expecting to really love this because so many people did, but I was quite disappointed by it. I just found it very slow, and I felt some of the chapters I was just found myself zoning out. It took me a bit of a time to get through. I did enjoy parts of it, but parts of it I just didn't enjoy either, so it wasn't my favourite. 3.75 stars. 28 Summers by Ellen Hildebrand. Really enjoyed this, but it was quite slow paced in parts. It picked up definitely towards the end. There was a lot more drama and stuff going on towards the end. Follows a couple over 28 summers, but they aren't actually together. They're like dating other people at the same time, but they're still in love with each other pretty much, and they meet up every summer for 28 years. 3.5 stars. The Villa by Rachel Hawkins. I gave this 3 stars at the time, but in hindsight I would give it a lower rating, maybe 2.5 stars, because I didn't really enjoy this thriller. It wasn't very thrilling. Just wasn't one of my favourites. Moving on to July, this is when my reading slump fully hit. And I just was struggling to get through anything, so I didn't read very much for the next sort of 3 months. But I did read The Longest Holiday by Paige Toon. This was okay. Can't really remember it again. It wasn't obviously something that has stuck with me, but it was a fun summery kind of romance. 3.5 stars. I also read Twisted Lies by Anna Huang, which is the last book in the Twisted series. This one wasn't my favourite in the series. I just feel like these books just kind of got a little bit repetitive after a while, and I wasn't a huge fan of the male main character. 3.5 stars. In August, I then finished my Harry Potter reread, so I listened to the audiobook of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, gave this one 5 stars. And I also read on my Kindle A Thousand Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. I was expecting to cry my eyes out at this book, and I did tear up at one point. Like, I did cry a little bit, but I just feel like this book, I wish I kind of knew what the trigger warnings were of this book, because there's a certain topic in this book, which I'm not going to say just in case you don't want any spoilers, but there's a certain topic within this book which just I don't really like reading about. It just makes me feel really depressed. So I did enjoy the book. I gave it 4 stars, but the subject matter is very hard hitting, and I didn't really like the subject matter. I didn't really like reading about that topic, if you know what I mean. In September, I read The Teacher by Frida McFadden, which I do still own, but my mum's currently borrowing it at the moment. I gave this 4 stars. I seem to give basically every Frida McFadden 4 stars. Like, I feel like that's just like a running theme at this point. I also read Inconceivable by Ben Oughton, and I would definitely not recommend reading this if you're struggling with infertility and things like that, because that is like one of the main topics in this book. I did enjoy this book, although there were some parts of it that were very slow, and I did find myself skim reading, but it was an okay read. I gave it 3 stars. In October, I started to get out of my reading slump a little bit, and I read None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. I gave it 4 stars. Quite fast paced, as most of her books are. I was kind of anticipating to like this more than I did, but I did really enjoy it. It was very intriguing, kept me intrigued right till the very end, so another good one by Lisa Jewell. I also finally got to Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, and I absolutely loved it. I was not disappointed. I gave it 4.75 stars. It was just so sweet, and I love the fantasy kind of element. It kind of felt more like a historical fiction kind of thing, but with fantasy elements, but I did really love it, and I love the characters and I love their relationship. It was just really sweet. I read the first Zodiac Academy book, which is The Awakening, and I still don't know how I feel about this book. I gave it 3.5 stars, but I don't know if I loved it or hated it. So I don't know whether to continue with the series or not. I probably will at some point give the second book a go, but I'm just not entirely sure if this series is going to be my vibe, but I may give it a go again in the future. I gave it 3.5 stars. I listened to the audiobook of The Perfect Son by Frida McFadden, and this one again, I should have given it 4 stars, but I gave it 4.25 stars for some reason, but I probably should have given it 4 stars because it was just another sort of typical Frida McFadden, fast-paced with big plot twists. Although I did predict the plot twist in this, so it was a bit more predictable than some of her other ones. I read The Girl Behind the Gates by Brenda Davies, which again, my mum's also boring. I really enjoyed this. It's a historical fiction it was based around a true story, and the things that happened in this book were absolutely horrendous. It just shocked me, but I fully enjoyed this book. It was really good. I highly recommend if you like historical kind of reads. But maybe check trigger warnings, as there are some hard topics in this book as well. I gave it 4.25 stars. In November, I finished off the Chestnut Springs series with Hopeless by Elsie Silver, and I did enjoy this one, but it probably was my least favourite in this series. I gave it 3.75 stars. I feel like the plot wasn't as strong, and the female mum character wasn't my absolute favourite. I read In the Weeds by B.K. Borison. This book was okay, but it just was nothing special. I found the plot quite boring. I gave it 3 stars. It was pretty average. I listened to The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. This kind of follows her usual style of writing where the book is told by multiple perspectives and it switches between the perspectives to explain the story. It was just a bit unhinged. It was very bizarre, this one, but I gave it 3 stars. It was okay. I read My Vampire Plus One by Jenna Levine. I really enjoyed this. It wasn't as good as the first one in the series, but I did really enjoy it. It was just quite entertaining, sort of vampire romance type thing. 3.75 stars. I listened to the audiobook of Good Material by Dolly Alderton. I did really enjoy this, surprisingly. I didn't think I would, but I kind of like listening to books that are like this via audio. They kind of just hit different. I don't know why. It was sort of just a book about a guy who's going through a breakup and his experience through that and everything. I can understand why some people would find this boring, and if I read it physically, maybe I would have found it more boring, but via audio I did really enjoy it. 4.25 stars. I read The Housemaid is Watching, which is the 3rd book in the Housemaid trilogy by Frida McFadden, and I did enjoy this one, but just not as much as the previous ones. I feel like this book didn't really need to happen. The plot wasn't as strong. I didn't really know where the plot was going, so yeah, it was alright. I gave it 3.25 stars. I read A Little Christmas Novella, which is A Cruel Winter with You by Ellie Hazelwood. This one was okay, but it wasn't that special. I just kind of wanted to get through it in the end. I gave it 2.5 stars. I also read another couple of the novellas in this little Christmas novella collection. One of them was Merry Ever After by Tessa Bailey. Did not enjoy this. It was terrible. The smut scenes in it were just terrible, and it was just too much. 1.5 stars. And also another one, which is All by My Elf by Olivia Dade. I listened to this via audiobook. Again, just followed the same formula where it was just a quick meet cute and then loads of smut scenes, which I did not enjoy. I gave it 2.5 stars. I also read The Housemaid's Wedding, which was like a short novella as part of the Housemaid series. This was okay. Can't remember what I actually rated this one. Didn't write it down in my notebook for some reason. Don't know why. Probably around 3 stars. It was okay. The Christmas Book Club by Sarah Morgan. This was quite a nice Christmassy read that didn't have like cheesy romance in it, which was made a good change, because normally Christmassy books I find are just like full of cheesy romance, and it's just a bit too much sometimes. So it was nice to read this one, which was a book about 3 friends and their lives basically. They go to this little book club together and it took place around Christmas time, and it was really enjoyable. 4 stars. Finally, we're on to December. I read Merriment and Mayhem, which was by Alexandra Bellefleur, which is another book, another one of those quick Christmas novellas. I gave it 2 stars. Didn't enjoy it again, so at this point I gave up and didn't continue with the final one in this little collection because I wasn't enjoying them. My December Darling by Lauren Asher. This was like a 200-page Christmas novella, but it wasn't very Christmassy. It was okay. It was very average. Like, it was nothing special. I gave it 3 stars. A Stranger in the House by Shari Lapina. This was like a quick thriller. I remember enjoying it while I was reading it, but I honestly couldn't tell you what it was about. And considering I read it less than a month ago, it just kind of tells you that the plot was not very memorable, but it was okay. I gave it 3 stars. Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross, the 2nd book in the Divine Rivals duology. This one I was quite disappointed by because I didn't enjoy this anywhere near as much as the 1st book. I think it just lost its charm and its magic. I don't know why. I don't really know what it was about it, but this book focused more on the war and it lost me in places. I did enjoy it. I gave it 3.5 stars, but I was just a bit disappointed and was kind of glad when it was over. One Day in December by Josie Silver, another Christmassy kind of read. This one I really enjoyed. I gave it 4.25 stars. It's about a couple who they fall in love at first sight pretty much, and they don't end up meeting properly at that point, and then they meet a while later in a not so good circumstance, and then it follows them throughout the years and their romance and stuff, and it's just, there is a little bit of cheating, like a cheating trope that goes on in this, which some people are not a fan of, but it wasn't too bad. But I did really enjoy it. I really like this type of story. 4.25 stars. I then read Kingdom of the Wicked by Kerry Maniscalco. The first half of the book took me a little while to get into, but once I'd got into it, I really enjoyed it and I really liked the ending, and I'm intrigued to know where the story goes next. 3.75 stars. And finally, the last book that I read in 2024 was Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. I gave this 4.5 stars. I decided to read this at this time in my life because it's based around an accidental pregnancy trope, and it kind of goes through her pregnancy throughout the book, which obviously I can relate to in some ways. My pregnancy was not accidental, just to put that out there, but But like the fact that she was pregnant and going through her pregnancy and stuff, I just thought it would be a good time to read this, and I did really enjoy it. It was very, very sweet. The guy was so sweet. So that was a quick overview of all of the books that I read in 2024. It was an okay reading year. I feel like it could have been better, but I did get in a big reading slump, and quite a lot of the books I read was sort of average. I definitely in 2025 want to read a lot more fantasy books, because I know that fantasy books, like, they hit different sometimes, and I just really want to read more of them. I think overall I read 76 books, which is quite a lot less than last year, but obviously it doesn't matter about how many you read. I'm sure in 2025 I'm going to read even less, because I've got a baby on the way and I'm just not going to have as much time on my hands. But I still really want to enjoy reading, as it's my favourite hobby and it's just something that I love to do and it relaxes me. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I have now got a pile of books here to put back on my shelf, so that's fun. I hope you had a really good Christmas and New Year, and I look forward to what 2025 brings. Please give the video a like if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you weren't already, and I'll hopefully see you in my next video. Bye for now.